per hour. Throughout its early days, Darlington established itself with a tradition of speed, excitement, and crowd-pleasing action. In the decades that have passed, the legend of Darlington has only grown larger. From Johnny Mance to Harry Gant, every driver will agree she's still too tough to tame.
When you start talking about tough corners in racing, the first one you think about is turn 4 at Darlington. But just a minute, let's talk about a few more corners before we get to this one. Let's go to Pocono, turn 1. You're going down the front straightaway at about 200 miles an hour, looking at turn 1 forever because the straightaway is over 3,500 feet. And you get there and you have to turn into a flat corner and you wonder every lap, am I going to make it? Most of the time you do. The tunnel corner at Pocono, the car has to be so precise. It has to be at exactly the right place. Otherwise, you're not going to get through that turn well at all. You're going to go up, push off the corner, or get sideways. There's only about a 2 feet leeway that you have to put the car in. Turn 3 at Pocono, you have to get off that corner to maintain your speed to go down that long straightaway. It's critical you get off that corner and don't have to back off the throttle.
Second turn at Pocono over the tunnel, I feel like it's one of the most dangerous and the most difficult turns in racing. You go down that straightaway at 180, probably 90 miles an hour into just a 90-degree corner with, right head on into the wall. I'd rate that as probably the most dangerous and one of the toughest.
Bristol, turns 1 and 2, 3 and 4, they're the same. The racetrack is banked 35 degrees. When you drive in the corner, at say 130 miles an hour, it feels like it's going to throw the entire body through the right door. The strain on the upper body and the neck is incredible. When you get through with that race, you just want to lay down and die.
Well, I'd say that one of the toughest tracks to maneuver is probably Bristol, Tennessee. It's probably most physically demanding.
Bristol's a difficult track from the standpoint is it's very demanding, and Bristol will get you too if you're not, if you get too aggressive at Bristol late in a race, the rubber builds up coming off of turn 2 and turn 4, and if also going into the corners, if you try to pinch the corners off a little bit, they'll get you there.
And not all drivers pick the traditionally hard racetracks as their tough racetrack. You'd be surprised what some drivers pick as their tough track.
And Daytona has the same characteristics of a Darlington. The track was built in 1959 for 130 miles an hour, maybe at max, 140 miles an hour. And today, without restrictor plates, we could easily run 220 there. So Daytona is a very difficult track, and turn 4 at Daytona, again, is one of the most dangerous and most difficult turns there is on any racetrack. But because of the speeds we run there and the way the cars handle and the way we can race each other at Daytona, it makes it one of the most difficult racetracks in my mind. And I know when I look at that crash from Daytona in '91, it brings tears to my eyes because I don't know how I survived that. And it's really a credit to our sport and to our cars and really the conditioning of most of the athletes in the sport that we can survive things like that.
Newer tracks that I find to have a real tough turn on it, and you don't see a lot happen there, but every lap it gets your attention. That's Phoenix coming off of turn 2. You come running off there wide open, and that wall that comes out at, on the exit, it just jumps right out at you. And I scared myself more than one time getting off there, wondering if I was going to hit it or not.
As far as the turns, Atlanta's a pretty nervy track. Going in both corners, it's a pretty fast racetrack. It's mostly all corners, and you're hitting 190 mile an hour getting in the corners. So that's a pretty nervy track. It's there's so many grooves you can run. You got to think about killing yourself and going, in the right groove.
Crew chiefs and car owners, they have their own definition of the toughest racetracks and toughest corners.
Well, the toughest tracks in Winston Cup racing for me are the ones that my drivers don't like the most. I really enjoy going to Richmond, and I think Pocono is grand, and we don't manage to run as well there as we'd like to, based on the fact that we haven't yet figured out exactly how to get the car the way it needs to be, or our engine doesn't make as much power as it needs, or the drivers don't like the track.
I wouldn't doubt if Bristol 3 and 4 ain't about the toughest one. They're running so fast, and it's a change of the conduit changes so fast there. You're going down the straightaway and you're pretty much flat. All of a sudden you're sitting in a real high bank, and the car does change, it has a reaction almost instant when you go into turn. So it's pretty tough to get a car to settle down real quick like that.
What's the hardest? The one you're at right now. And what's the easiest? The one you won at last. So it's awful difficult to say.
Some drivers find road courses very challenging, including some drivers that are supposed to be the masters of road racing.
I think probably at Sears Point, turn 7 is the hardest, especially in a Winston Cup car. It's a pretty flat turn, and on the outside of the turn, when you're going through the right-hander, the pavement changes, and it's really slippery, and it's really hard to get these big, heavy cars through there with no tire. You really got to be agile on the throttle and really try to get the power down, because it's real important. That launches you for the second half of the track, really, at Sears Point. When you get off of turn 7, it gets you all the way back through turn 11. So it's real important to get out there, and it's really hard to get out there right. And I think I've run there about 10 or 12 times, and I think I've done that corner right probably once or twice.
And some racetracks that are relatively easy, weather can make very difficult. Daytona and Talladega, a good 30-40 mile an hour wind can really affect the race cars, particularly as you're trying to turn the car as you come off the corner. You're trying to turn into a headwind, it makes it almost impossible as the wind strikes the side of that car to get it to turn and go the other direction. Daytona and Talladega, you never have to lift off the throttle until you get in a real strong wind. Then you got to squeeze out of the gas to get off the corner and turn into that wind. But turn 4 is the one that most often mentioned.
Turn 4 at Darlington is a really hard turn. Probably Darlington's got to be the toughest. Getting through turn 4, getting through 4 without hitting the wall coming off is a trick in itself. You just got to get mad and mean and grit your teeth and talk to yourself. I mean, because you're really struggling with the race car. You're trying to make it do something that it doesn't want to do. The car's sliding a lot, and you know, you have all these senses going on. I mean, you're feeling the car slide, and you're through the steering wheel and through your tailbone, and you really just have to get mad and really drive the thing hard.
Darlington's Darlington. I mean, everybody knows that type of track. You know, there haven't been many accidents there lately is because we've been treating the old lady pretty good, you know. Every time everybody gets smart aleck with it, you know, it jumps up and bites you. But, you know, you got to respect that racetrack. Darlington's the type of racetrack where, you know, some of the worst accidents, you know, are like Richard Petty, you know, had coming off turn 4 years ago. But most accidents you see there aren't really bad because you're running up so close to the wall, you know. It don't give you a long time to hit hard. It's just that it ruins you enough to where you can't finish the race.
You know, it was built for cars to run 120 maybe, 120 probably at the most miles per hour. And now we go out there and run almost 170 at it, you know, and certainly over that on the straightaways. So makes for the room you got to race very narrow when you use what you got to have just to make a lap around there.
Darlington is fast, it's narrow, and concentration-wise, it takes an incredible amount of concentration.
And, you know, the problems start here in the middle of the corner, about where it says Darlington, USA. That's where you have to make the decision, what do I do with the steering wheel? Do I turn or do I wait? Because you can't see where you're going. You just can't see. If you turn too soon, you drive it in the apron. If you turn too late, you run in the outside retaining wall. But, you know, it's hard to explain what I'm saying by listening to me. Let's take a ride. I borrowed a car from the raceway. Russell Branham was kind enough to loan me the pace car. Let's go for a ride. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, you folks ready to go for a lap around Darlington Raceway, the racetrack that's too tough to tame? Front straightaway, going into a pretty tight corner, turn 1. About 180 miles an hour at this point, off the gas, on the brakes. The car goes to the bottom of the racetrack, but it will go up because of the track. The corner is so sharp that the car will go back up the racetrack. Here you're playing with the steering wheel, with the throttle, trying to find that perfect line, come off this corner. And as you come off, right up against the outside retaining wall. You can see how sharp turn 3 is. That's why it's so difficult for two cars to go in this corner, because you can see we're going to go from the outside of the racetrack right to the bottom of the racetrack. taking the whole racetrack. Then the car will go back up against the outside retaining wall. See the problem we've got? We can't see where we're going. You don't know when to turn the wheel. You wait, but all of a sudden, it's too late. You can't turn it. You come off the corner, and the car goes up and just smacks the outside retaining wall. That's what happens when you turn too late at Darlington. Now we'll do a lap, and we'll turn too soon and show you what happens. Once again, off the gas, on the brakes hard, down to the bottom. We go back up. And you're going along, you say, man, I gotta turn. Yeah, I'm gonna turn. So you turn. And guess what happens? You've turned too soon. You go down on the apron of the racetrack, which throws you right back up in the outside retaining wall, even harder than you would have had you been close to the outside retaining wall. And you know, we're talking about tough racetracks, and what makes them tough is you crash. You hit the outside wall, or you spin, and another car hits you. But it's not the fear of getting hurt that's the problem. It's the fear of losing that affects the driver, of losing the race, not being able to win the race. As tough as these tracks are physically, and they are hard physically because of the upper body of the neck and the pound that you take inside the race car, and the fact it's so hot in there and you're not able to get the fluid you really need. It's the mental thing, having to concentrate so hard for 4, sometimes 5 hours, sitting there thinking about the next corner every time you're down the straightaway. Hey, look, I got to go in turn 3. I got to get on the brakes here. Turn 4, I got to turn not too soon. I got to turn too early. You know, those are the things you have to think about every inch of the way. When it's over, physically you're exhausted, but mentally you're drained. Well, thanks for joining me once again on NASCAR Video Magazine, the Collector's Series. It's my pleasure to be able to bring it to you, but I expect you to let me know what you think, so I'm counting on you to write me at the address on the screen. Thanks again, and see you on the next edition.
Transportation provided by Winnebago Industries, manufacturer of the Winnebago Itasca Motorhomes. For more information on Winnebago Motorsports Team, call 1-800-643-4892.